The sound of Mason's laughter drifts through the open French doors, mingling with the salty breeze from our new beachfront property. I pause at the threshold, wine glasses balanced in my hands, when his words slice through the evening air. Of course the beach house will be yours, Chloe. Consider it my wedding gift to you and Ryan. The glasses nearly slip from my grip. I steady myself against the doorframe, my fingers turning white around the stems. Inside my chest, something cracks, not cleanly, but in jagged pieces that tear at my insides. I'm Brielle, and I've just discovered my husband is giving away our dream home to his sister. The barbecue smoke curls around the patio where Mason and Chloe sit, heads bent close together like conspiring children. She's wearing that innocent expression she always uses when she's getting her way, wide eyes, slightly parted lips, hands clasped under her chin. I've seen it too many times before. Mason, you're the best brother ever. Chloe squeals, throwing her arms around his neck. Ryan and I can start our family here, just like we always talked about. The family I wanted to start here. The family Mason and I had planned for these past 3 years while we saved every penny. I set the glasses down on the outdoor table with enough force to make them ring. Mason looks up, his smile faltering when he sees my face. Hey, honey. I was just telling Chloe. I heard what you were telling Chloe. My voice comes out steady, surprising even me. Could we talk inside for a moment? In the kitchen, I lean against our marble countertop, the one I spent months picking out, imagining future family breakfasts around it. Mason follows, running a hand through his hair, his tell when he knows he's screwed up. Before you say anything, he starts, I know I should have discussed it with you first. Discussed? I laugh, but there's no humor in it. Mason, we spent 5 years saving for this house. Our house. The one we're still unpacking boxes in. The one where we talked about raising our children. He steps closer, reaching for my hand. I pull away. Chloe and Ryan need it more than we do. They're just starting out, and with the wedding expenses. And what about us? What about what we need? We can always buy another house, he says, as if he's offering me a replacement for a broken coffee mug. Chloe's my sister. I promised our parents I'd always take care of her. The worst part is how reasonable he thinks he sounds. How he genuinely believes this is normal. I look at him, really look at him, and for the first time, I see something I've been avoiding for years. The man I married lives in Chloe's shadow, and he's perfectly content to drag me there with him. Your sister is 26 years old, Mason. She has a successful career, a wealthy fiancé, and somehow she still needs her big brother to give her a house. Our house. You don't understand. No, I understand perfectly. I reach for my phone. I'm calling Jessica. I'm staying with her tonight. Now panic flashes across his face. Brielle, don't be dramatic. We can work this out. Dramatic? I turn back to him, my voice barely above a whisper. You just gave away our home without consulting me. You betrayed everything we built together. And you think I'm being dramatic? Outside, Chloe's laughter floats through the window again, light, carefree, victorious. I wonder if she planned this, if she saw our beautiful beach house and decided she wanted it for herself. It wouldn't be the first time she's taken something of mine. But as I pack an overnight bag, listening to Mason's desperate attempts to explain himself, I realize something. This isn't just about a house anymore. This is about respect, about partnership, about the future I thought we were building together. And for the first time in our marriage, I'm not sure that future exists anymore. Jessica's spare bedroom feels like a sanctuary after 3 days of dodging Mason's calls. I sit cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through old photos on my phone when a particular image stops me cold, my wedding day, 5 years ago. Chloe stands between Mason and me in the photo, her arm wrapped possessively around his waist. I brought wine, Jessica announces, pushing open the door. She takes one look at my face and sets the glasses down. Oh honey, not the wedding photos. I keep trying to pinpoint when it started. I zoom in on Chloe's face. The way she slowly took over everything. You mean like your honeymoon? The memory hits me like a punch to the gut. 2 days before our departure to Bali, Chloe had a crisis with her boyfriend. Mason insisted we postpone our trip to help her through it. We never did reschedule. My phone buzzes, another text from Mason, can we please talk about this? I made dinner reservations at Marino's. Marino's, I scoff, showing Jessica the message. That's Chloe's favorite restaurant, not mine. Speaking of Chloe. Jessica hesitates, swirling her wine. Ryan came by my office today. I sit up straighter. Ryan? Chloe's fiancé. He wanted to know if you were okay. And? She takes a deep breath. He said Chloe's been pressuring Mason about the house for months. She apparently told him it was her idea to buy it in the first place. The wine glass trembles in my hand. What? There's more. Ryan said she's been showing the house to interior designers, making plans to renovate. She's acting like it's already hers. My mind races back to 3 months ago, when Chloe suddenly became obsessed with helping us house hunt. How she'd insisted on coming to every viewing, how she'd gushed about this particular property. I'd thought she was being supportive. The doorbell rings, and Jessica peers through the window. It's Mason. I don't want to see him. Too late. He's using his key. Mason appears in the doorway, looking disheveled in his wrinkled work shirt. Brielle, please. Just hear me out. Jessica stands. I'll give you 2 a minute. She shoots me a look that says she'll be right outside if I need her. You look terrible, I tell him, not moving from the bed. I miss you. He steps closer. Come home. We can figure this out. Figure what out, Mason? How to fit my life around Chloe's wants. How to pretend I'm okay with being second place in my own marriage. That's not fair. Not fair. I pull up our banking app. Then explain why you transferred $20,000 to Chloe last month without telling me. His face pales. How did you? Joint accounts, remember. The money we were saving for furniture. Let me guess, another crisis. She needed help with the wedding deposits, he stammers. She was going to pay us back. I laugh, but it comes out more like a sob. Like she paid us back for her car. Or her rent last year. Or the emergency credit card you gave her. She's family. And what am I, Mason? The silence stretches between us like a chasm. Outside, a car door slams, and Chloe's voice carries up to the window. Mason? Are you up there? Of course she followed him here. She never could stand not being the center of attention. Don't, I warn as he moves toward the door. But he's already calling down to her. I'll be right there, Chloe. And there it is, the moment crystallizes everything. He's already turning away from me, already responding to her call like a puppet on strings. I see our entire marriage laid bare in this single instant. Mason, I say quietly, if you walk out that door to her right now, don't expect me to be here when you come back. He hesitates, hand on the doorknob. For a moment, I see conflict in his eyes. Then Chloe calls again, and the choice is made. It's always been made. As his footsteps fade down the stairs, Jessica reappears with her laptop. Ready to look up divorce lawyers. I wipe my eyes, straightening my spine. Actually, I have a better idea. Pull up our bank statements from the past year. If Chloe wants to play games, let's see how she likes having her secrets exposed. The spreadsheet on Jessica's laptop screen tells a story more damning than I could have imagined. Each transaction, each hidden withdrawal paints a picture of systematic betrayal spanning years. My hands shake as I scroll through the evidence. $187,000, Jessica whispers. That's how much Mason has given Chloe over the past 3 years. The number hits me like a physical blow. Our entire savings. The down payment for the beach house. And look at these credit card statements. Jessica points to a series of charges. Designer boutiques, spa weekends, first-class flights, all on your joint account. My phone vibrates. Ryan's name flashes on the screen. I answer, putting it on speaker. Brielle, we need to talk, he says, his voice tight. Chloe just announced she's planning our wedding reception at your beach house. In 2 months. Jessica and I exchange looks. 2 months. I thought the wedding was next year. It was. She moved it up yesterday, said Mason agreed to handle all the costs. He pauses. There's something else. I found divorce papers in her desk drawer. They're dated 3 months ago. The room tilts sideways. She's already divorced. She never told me she was married before. When I confronted her, she said it wasn't important. That's when I started digging. His voice drops lower. Brielle, she's done this before. Married a wealthy guy, drained him dry, then vanished. Her real name isn't even Chloe. The pieces click together with sickening clarity. The way she pushed for this specific house. The rushed wedding. Mason's blind devotion. Does Mason know? No. And Brielle. Ryan hesitates. She's already listed the beach house for sale. My vision goes red. Without thinking, I grab my keys. Jessica grabs my arm. Where are you going? To the beach house. Mason needs to see this. I'll drive, Jessica says, taking my keys. You're in no state. The drive feels endless. When we pull up to the house, Mason's car is in the driveway next to Chloe's new Mercedes, the one he must have bought her with our savings. Through the front window, I see them in the living room. Chloe's showing something on her phone to Mason, who's nodding with that familiar, devoted expression. My stomach turns. I burst through the door, clutching the printed bank statements. How long have you known? They both jump. Chloe recovers first, her face arranging itself into concerned innocence. Known what, sweetie? Drop the act. I slap the papers onto the coffee table. Your real name is Sarah Mitchell. You've been married 3 times. You're a con artist. The color drains from Mason's face. What are you talking about? Show him, I tell Chloe. Show him the divorce papers in your desk. Tell him about the house listing. For a moment, Chloe's mask slips. Something cold and calculating flashes in her eyes. Then she starts to cry, turning to Mason. She's lying. She's just jealous of our relationship. But Mason's staring at the bank statements, his hands trembling. These withdrawals. Chloe. It's not what you think. Your wedding was 3 months ago, I cut in. To a real estate developer in Seattle. You cleaned out his accounts too, didn't you? Mason stumbles backward like he's been hit. Is it true? Chloe's tears vanish instantly. She straightens, something ugly twisting her beautiful features. You made it so easy, she says, her voice different now, harder, colder. Both of you. Poor, devoted Mason, still trying to save his baby sister. And you, Brielle, so desperate to be the perfect wife. She grabs her purse, heading for the door. The house goes on the market next week. My lawyer will be in touch. As she leaves, Mason crumples onto the couch, his whole world visibly shattering. Part of me wants to comfort him, but a stronger part knows this isn't my role anymore. I'll have my lawyer contact you about divorce proceedings, I say quietly, turning to leave. Brielle, wait, his voice breaks. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I pause at the door, not looking back. That's the problem, Mason. You never wanted to know. The police station's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across Detective Torres's desk as she spreads out the documents. 5 photos of different women, all bearing Chloe's face, all under different names. Sarah Mitchell is just one alias, Torres explains. We've been tracking her for years. She's hit at least 4 other families across 3 states. My coffee goes cold in my hands as I study the pictures. And Mason? Your husband isn't the first brother she's manipulated. She finds vulnerable families, usually with protective male relatives, and exploits their emotional bonds. She taps one photo. This victim lost his entire retirement fund trying to help her. The door opens and Ryan steps in, looking exhausted. The beach house listing went live this morning. Asking price is $800,000. Double what we paid, I whisper. My phone buzzes, another message from Mason. I've been ignoring them since yesterday's confrontation. Detective Torres leans forward. We need your help, Mrs. Carter. Your evidence of the financial fraud could help us build a case, but you need me to keep playing along, I finish. To act like I don't know anything. Just until we can trace where she's moving the money. Ryan paces behind me. She's meeting with potential buyers tomorrow. If she sells that house before we stop her. She won't. My voice sounds stronger than I feel. Because I'm going to that showing. Back at Jessica's, I sort through my closet, pulling out the expensive dress Chloe once insisted I buy. Perfect for real estate networking, she'd said. The irony isn't lost on me now. Jessica watches from the doorway. Are you sure about this? Playing her game is dangerous. She's played me for 3 years. I slip on the dress, checking my reflection. Time to return the favor. My phone rings, Mason again. This time, I answer. The police are looking for her, he says immediately. They came to my office. Why didn't you tell me you were pressing charges? Like you would have believed me. I believe you now. I've been going through old photos, documents. God, Brielle, I've been such a fool. Yes, I say simply. You have. Let me help make this right. Please. I close my eyes, remembering all the times he chose her over me. All the dreams we built that she systematically destroyed. The house showing is tomorrow at 2, I tell him. If you want to make things right, be there. But not for me, for all the other families she's destroyed. The next day, I arrive early to find Chloe already charming a group of potential buyers. She falters slightly when she sees me, but recovers quickly. Brielle. How lovely to see you. Her smile is razor sharp. Though I'm not sure why you're here. Oh, I'm just protecting my investment. I match her tone. You know, like you taught me. Understanding flashes in her eyes, followed by something darker. She pulls me aside, dropping her voice. You can't stop this sale. The paperwork's already drawn up. Under which name? I ask sweetly. Sarah. Jennifer. Or should I ask your previous husbands? For the first time, real fear crosses her face. She glances at the buyers, then back at me. You're bluffing. Detective Torres sends her regards. The front door opens. Mason walks in, followed by Ryan and 2 plainclothes officers. Chloe's mask cracks completely. Mason, she starts, reaching for him. Whatever they told you. But Mason steps back, his face hard. It's over, Chloe. Or whatever your real name is. As the officers move forward, Chloe turns to me, her expression twisting into something ugly. You really think this changes anything? He'll always choose family first. He'll always. You're right, I interrupt. He will always choose family. But you? I smile, watching the handcuffs click around her wrists. You were never really family, were you? 3 days after Chloe's arrest, Mason shows up at Jessica's doorstep with a stack of papers. His hands tremble as he holds them out. The police found these in her storage unit, he says. Documents from all her previous targets. He stumbles over the last word. There's more, Brielle. So much more. I take the papers but don't invite him in. The documents reveal a pattern spanning 8 years, not 3. Families destroyed, lives ruined, all meticulously documented in Chloe's elegant handwriting. She kept trophies, Mason continues, his voice hollow. Photos of the houses she took, bank statements, even wedding rings. Why are you showing me this? Because I found this. He pulls out a photograph, me and Mason on our wedding day. On the back, in Chloe's handwriting, target acquired. Estimated value, 1.2 M. The world tilts sideways. She planned this from the beginning. I was never her brother. Mason's voice cracks. She researched me for months before orchestrating our chance meeting. Created an entire backstory. Even hired actors to play her parents at family gatherings. My phone buzzes, Detective Torres. Chloe's requesting a deal, she says when I answer. She'll return all the stolen assets if you drop the charges. Mason's eyes meet mine, pleading. We could get everything back. Start over. Start over. The laugh that escapes me sounds foreign to my own ears. There is no starting over, Mason. You gave her our life savings. Our home. Our future children's college fund. I'll make it right. No. I thrust the papers back at him. You don't get to make this right. You don't get to play the victim. Then what do you want? I want a divorce. The words hang between us like shattered glass. Mason steps back as if I've struck him. Brielle, please. We can fix this. Fix what? Your judgment. Your loyalty. The fact that you chose a stranger over your wife because she played the role of family better than I could. My phone buzzes again. This time it's Ryan. Turn on the news, he says without preamble. The TV flickers to life, showing Chloe in her orange jumpsuit, speaking to reporters. I was manipulated, she's saying, tears streaming down her face. My brother Mason forced me to participate in his scheme. He threatened me, controlled all the accounts. Mason's face drains of color. She's lying. Of course she is. I grab my keys. And you're going to help me prove it. At the police station, Detective Torres plays us the rest of Chloe's statement. She's crafted an elaborate tale of Mason as the mastermind, herself as the unwitting pawn. She's offering documented proof, Torres explains. Emails, recordings, bank transfers in your name. She forged them, Mason protests. Probably. But it'll take months to prove that. Meanwhile, she's painting herself as a victim of domestic coercion. The DA's considering her deal. I watch Mason crumble under the weight of this final betrayal. Part of me wants to comfort him, but a stronger part remembers every time he dismissed my concerns, every time he chose her. I'll testify, he says finally. About everything. The real timeline, the manipulation, all of it. That would mean admitting to criminal negligence, Torres warns. You could face charges. Mason looks at me, really looks at me, for the first time in years. I don't care. I owe Brielle the truth. But I'm already walking away, pulling divorce papers from my bag, papers I'd had drawn up the day after Chloe's arrest. Sign these first, I tell him. Then you can tell whatever truth you want. Brielle. The truth is, Mason, I don't care anymore if you go to jail. I don't care if Chloe wins again. I just want out. I leave the papers on Torres's desk, walking out of the station into the bright afternoon sun. Behind me, I hear Mason calling my name, but for the first time, I don't turn around. Some betrayals, I've learned, can't be undone with truth or justice. Some wounds only heal when you stop trying to understand them and simply walk away. The courtroom feels colder than it should in August. I sit rigid in my chair as Chloe's lawyer presents another piece of evidence, photos of Mason and me arguing, carefully dated and annotated. Each image tells a story of manipulation and control, but not the one they claim. Your Honor, Chloe's lawyer continues, these documents clearly show that Mr. Carter orchestrated the entire scheme, using both his wife and his vulnerable sister as pawns. Mason sits 3 rows behind me, head bowed. He testified yesterday, confessing everything, but Chloe's legal team painted him as an unreliable witness attempting to save himself. The judge reviews the documents. And the beach house. A property purchased through coercion, Your Honor. My client was forced to participate in the fraud under threat of violence. My lawyer stands. Objection, Your Honor. There's no evidence. Evidence right here, Chloe's lawyer interrupts, producing a recording. Mason's voice fills the courtroom, the house will be yours, Chloe. I promise. Whatever it takes. The recording cuts off there, conveniently missing the context, Mason's manipulation by Chloe. But the damage is done. I watch the judge's expression shift. During recess, Detective Torres pulls me aside. They're offering a deal. Chloe keeps the beach house and drops all charges against Mason. In exchange, you withdraw your complaint. She wins again, I whisper. She's good at this game, Torres admits. We found 6 other cases, but each time she walked away clean. The victims were too embarrassed or broken to fight. Jessica squeezes my hand. You're not broken. But aren't I? Our savings gone, our dream house about to be legally handed to a con artist, and my marriage. I glance at Mason, who looks like he's aged 10 years in 2 weeks. There's something else, Torres adds quietly. We found evidence that Chloe's planning to sell the house to an overseas buyer. Once that money leaves the country, we'll never see it again. Back in the courtroom, Chloe takes the stand. She's transformed herself, gone are the designer clothes and perfect makeup. Instead, she wears a simple dress, her face bare and vulnerable. I was scared, she testifies, voice trembling. Mason said if I didn't help him, he'd make sure I lost everything. Brielle knew. She helped him plan it all. The lie hits me like a physical blow. I start to stand, but my lawyer pulls me back. Let her talk, he whispers. She's getting sloppy. And he's right. As Chloe continues her performance, small inconsistencies emerge. Dates that don't match. Details that contradict her earlier statements. But will it be enough? During her cross-examination, my phone buzzes. A text from Ryan, check your email. Now. I open it under the table. There's a video attachment, security footage from the beach house. It shows Chloe meeting with someone, speaking animatedly. The timestamp is from last week, while she was supposedly in custody. She posted bail, Torres whispers, appearing beside me. Used it to arrange the house sale. I forward the video to my lawyer, who immediately requests a recess. But before he can speak, Chloe's voice cuts through the courtroom. I want to change my statement. Everyone freezes. Chloe stands, but something's different. Her mask of vulnerability has cracked, revealing something harder beneath. The truth is, she announces, none of them knew what they were dealing with. Not Mason, not Brielle, not any of them. They were all so desperate to believe in family, in love, in redemption. She laughs, the sound brittle. It made them perfect targets. The courtroom erupts. As officers move to restrain her, Chloe locks eyes with me. The house is already sold, she says. Papers signed yesterday. You can have your victory, Brielle, but I still win. I watch them lead her away, feeling hollow. We've exposed her, stopped her from hurting others, but at what cost? Everything we worked for, everything we dreamed of, is still gone. Mason approaches hesitantly. Brielle. I stand, gathering my things. Don't. Just, don't. Outside, rain begins to fall. I step into it, letting it wash over me, wondering how victory can feel so much like defeat. The beach house looms before me, dark against the setting sun. Detective Torres's words echo in my head, we traced the buyer. It's one of Chloe's previous victims, a man named Daniel Harrison. He's flying in tonight to close the deal. I grip the steering wheel, watching Mason's car pull up behind mine. He steps out, looking uncertain. You're sure about this? He asks through my window. No, I answer honestly. But it's our last chance. Inside, the house feels different. Empty picture hooks dot the walls where our photos once hung. Chloe's designer furniture fills the spaces, staged perfectly for the sale. Ryan appears from the kitchen. Harrison's flight lands in an hour. Chloe's meeting him here to finalize everything. She doesn't know you're involved. I ask. No. She thinks I'm still the devoted fiancé. His smile is bitter. 5 years she's been doing this. 5 years of destroying families, and Harrison was her first victim. Lost everything to her, his home, his savings, his relationship with his kids. A car's headlights sweep across the windows. We quickly move to our positions, Ryan in the kitchen, Mason upstairs, me in the darkness of the living room. Chloe enters like she owns the place, which legally, she still does. She's back in designer clothes, her mask of vulnerability discarded. Daniel, she calls out. I thought we said 8 o'clock. He's running late, Ryan steps out, making her jump. Traffic from the airport. Her eyes narrow. What are you doing here? Watching you work. It's fascinating, really. The way you select your targets, build their trust, then tear everything apart. Ryan, darling, you're not making sense. But there's an edge to her voice now. 5 years ago, I say, stepping into the light. You convinced Daniel Harrison you were his long-lost daughter. She spins toward me, composure cracking. You don't. Then 3 years ago, you played grieving widow to the Peterson family in Seattle. Mason's voice carries from the stairs. Before targeting me as your long-lost brother. Chloe's hand moves to her purse, but Ryan's faster. He grabs it, pulling out her phone and a small recorder. Looking for this. He holds up a USB drive. Your insurance policy. All those recordings of Mason supposedly threatening you. You went through my things. For the first time, real fear crosses her face. Actually, a new voice says from the doorway, he gave them to me. Daniel Harrison steps into the house, followed by Detective Torres and 2 officers. He's older than in the photos I've seen, grief and anger etched deep in his face. Hello, Sarah, he says quietly. Or is it Chloe now? Chloe's mask shatters completely. She lunges for the door, but the officers catch her arms. "The house is sold," she spits at me. "Signed and done." "You can't." "Check the paperwork," Harrison interrupts. "The buyer's name is Daniel Harrison. I bought back the house you stole from my family, at half its value, thanks to your rush to sell. And I'm giving it back to its rightful owners." He holds out a folder to me. Inside are transfer documents, already signed. "Why?" I whisper. "Because someone needed to stop her. And because sometimes, the only way to heal old wounds is to help prevent new ones." As the officers lead Chloe away, she locks eyes with Mason one last time. "You promised to protect me," she says, voice breaking. "You promised." "No," Mason replies. "I promised to protect my family. I just took too long to realize who that really was." We stand in silence as the police cars pull away. Harrison touches my shoulder gently. "The house is yours again," he says. "Do better with it than I did." I look at Mason, seeing the weight of everything we've lost, and everything we might still save. "We will, I promise, but I'm not sure if I'm talking to Harrison or myself. Some wounds need more than justice to heal. Some houses need more than new owners to become homes again." But as I stand in our reclaimed space, watching the sun set through windows that are ours once more, I realize that maybe, just maybe, this is where healing begins. The beach house key feels heavier in my hand as I unlock the door one last time. Harrison's offer to return the property sits unsigned on my kitchen counter at Jessica's. The morning sun streams through windows still marked with Chloe's decorating plans, her elegant handwriting mapping out a future that never belonged to her. My footsteps echo through empty rooms as Detective Torres's words from yesterday replay in my mind. Chloe took a plea deal. She'll serve time, but more importantly, she's agreed to help other victims recover their assets. I trace my fingers along the kitchen counter where Mason and I once planned our future family. A noise behind me makes me turn. "I thought I'd find you here." Mason stands in the doorway, holding a cardboard box. "The last of your things from the old house." I accept the box without looking inside. "Thank you." "Have you decided?" "About Harrison's offer?" "I'm selling it," I say quietly. "To a young couple. First-time buyers, like we were." Something flickers across Mason's face. "You're not keeping it." "Some houses carry too many ghosts." I set the box down, pulling out Harrison's transfer papers. "I already signed. They're closing next week." Mason nods, understanding settling in his eyes. "What about the money?" "It's technically yours now. It's going to Harrison's foundation. To help other victims of financial fraud rebuild their lives." I manage a small smile. "Seems fitting, doesn't it?" He steps closer, careful to maintain distance. "I've been seeing someone. A therapist. Trying to understand why I let myself be so completely fooled. Broken," he corrects. "Why I needed the idea of family so desperately that I destroyed the real thing I had." Through the window, I watch waves crash against the shore. The beach house had seemed like such a perfect dream once. Now I understand that dreams aren't about places or possessions, they're about the truth we build them on. "I got a job offer," I tell him. "In Chicago. Head of department. The position you always wanted. I start next month." Mason moves to the window, his reflection overlapping with mine in the glass. "I never said I was sorry." "Not really. Not for everything." "I know. Does that make it worse?" "That I understand now, when it's too late." I turn to face him fully. "It's not about being too late, Mason. It's about being too different. We're not the same people who bought this house." He reaches into his pocket, pulling out our divorce papers. His signature is fresh at the bottom. I hope Chicago knows how lucky they are to get you. As I take the papers, our fingers brush. For a moment, I remember everything we were, everything we could have been. Then I think of everything we survived becoming instead. Goodbye, Mason. He pauses at the door. The therapist asked me something interesting. She said sometimes we chase false families because we're afraid our real ones will see who we truly are. He meets my eyes. You always saw me, Brielle. I just wasn't brave enough to look back. After he leaves, I walk through each room one last time. In the master bedroom, I find a small envelope tucked into the box of my things. Inside is a photo I thought was lost, Mason and me on the day we first viewed this house, both of us beaming with possibility. I don't tear it up. Instead, I leave it on the mantel, a small piece of truth for the next family to find. Let them wonder about our story, about the lessons hidden in these walls. Outside, Jessica waits in her car. Ready? I lock the door, dropping the key into an envelope for the realtor. You know what's strange? I thought getting justice would feel like victory. Doesn't it? No, I say, watching the sun glint off the windows of the house that was never really ours. It feels like freedom.
Just accept it and move on. You're too weak to fight back anyway. Jessica's mocking laughter echoed through the living room as she lounged on my couch, casually sipping the wine I'd bought for my anniversary. An anniversary I now knew my husband had planned to spend with someone else. My name is Olivia, and at 35, I never expected to be standing in my own home, listening to my sister-in-law mock me while my husband David announced his plans to start a new life with his 26-year-old girlfriend. Look, Olivia, David said, pacing near the fireplace where our family photos still hung. This doesn't have to be messy. Sarah and I want to keep things simple. No legal registration, no property division. You can stay in the house for now, and everyone wins. I stood there, gripping my coffee mug so tight my knuckles turned white. 6 years of marriage, and this was how it ended, with my husband and his mistress planning their future while my SIL watched the show with barely concealed glee. She's not even crying, Jessica Stage whispered to David. Maybe she doesn't care as much as you thought she would, brother. Her smirk grew wider as she examined her perfectly manicured nails. Or maybe she's finally accepting that she's not enough for you. I took a slow sip of my now cold coffee, my mind racing beneath my calm exterior. David had always been the perfect one in his family's eyes. Successful architect, charming personality, and according to his sister Jessica, far too good for plain, quiet me. What they never realized was that being underestimated had taught me patience, and patience had taught me wisdom. Well, David demanded, clearly unsettled by my silence. Aren't you going to say anything? I set my mug down carefully on the coffee table. What would you like me to say, David? Jessica laughed again, the sound grating against my nerves. Oh, this is rich. She's actually going to play the dignified wife. How pathetic. But I wasn't playing. I was remembering the late nights I'd spent helping David build his portfolio when we first married, the clients I'd helped him network with through my own connections, and most importantly, the documents I carefully preserved over the years. I understand, I said simply, meeting David's eyes. You want to start fresh with Sarah. No legal ties, no complications. David's shoulders relaxed visibly. Exactly. I knew you'd be reasonable about this. You always were the practical one. Too practical, Jessica chimed in. That's probably why David got bored. Sarah at least knows how to have fun. I watched as David grabbed his jacket, ready to leave for his dinner date with Sarah. I'll send someone to pick up my things tomorrow, he said, not quite meeting my eyes. We can sort out the details later. As they walked toward the door, Jessica turned back with one final jab. You know, Olivia, some women would fight for their marriage. But I guess you're just not that type, are you? I smiled softly, thinking of the locked drawer in my home office upstairs. You're right, Jessica. I'm not that type at all. After they left, I walked upstairs to my office, my hands steady as I unlocked the bottom drawer of my desk. Inside lay 6 years' worth of carefully documented evidence, emails, bank statements, contracts with David's signature, and most importantly, proof of how deeply involved I've been in building his successful architecture firm. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "Don't embarrass yourself by trying to fight this. We both know you're not strong enough." I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my laptop and composed a quick email to my old college friend, now a prominent divorce attorney. "Remember when you told me to document everything? I need your help." Looking out my office window at the setting sun, I thought about David's words. No legal registration, no property division. He thought he found the perfect way to start his new life without consequences. Jessica thought I was too weak to stand up for myself. They were both about to learn that quiet doesn't mean weak, and patience doesn't mean acceptance. I had spent years being underestimated by David's family, watching and waiting, documenting and preparing. Not because I expected this day to come, but because my mother had taught me that smart women always have a backup plan. I picked up my phone and dialed another number. "Hi, Marcus. Remember those investment documents you helped me review last year? I think it's time to put our contingency plan into action." The wheels were already turning, and soon David and Jessica would learn that they had greatly underestimated the quiet, practical wife who never fought back. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in the fighting, it's in the waiting. 2 weeks after David's announcement, I sat in my lawyer's office, surrounded by stacks of meticulously organized documents. Maya, my attorney and college friend, whistled as she flipped through the files. "Olivia, this is incredible," she said, shaking her head in amazement. "You have records of every contribution you made to David's firm, every client you brought in, every late-night revision you helped with, and these investment records." I nodded, thinking back to all those nights I'd spent organizing and backing up documents while David worked late, allegedly at the office. I learned early in our marriage that David's family only respected power. I figured having proof of my contributions might come in handy someday. Maya leaned back in her chair. "Your husband thinks he can avoid property division by not legally registering his new relationship. But with these records, we can prove your substantial contribution to his firm's success. He'll have to properly divide assets whether he likes it or not." Just then, my phone buzzed with another taunting text from Jessica. "David and Sarah looked so happy at dinner last night. This is what real love looks like, not your sad excuse for a marriage." I showed Maya the text, and she smiled grimly. "Your SIL really enjoys pushing your buttons, doesn't she?" "She's been doing it for 6 years, I replied, always implying I wasn't good enough for David, that I was lucky to have him. "She has no idea I've saved every nasty message, every email where she belittled me." Maya's eyes gleamed. "Actually, those messages could work in our favor. They show a pattern of emotional harassment and combined with these financial records." A knock at the door interrupted us. Marcus, my financial advisor, entered with his own stack of papers. "Ladies, wait until you see this. Those private investments David made last year, the ones he didn't want Olivia to know about, they were made using company funds that Olivia helped secure through her client connections." I remember discovering those transactions during one of my regular reviews of our joint accounts. Instead of confronting David, I had quietly documented everything and consulted Marcus about protecting my interests. "So not only did he use company money for personal investments," Maya said slowly, "but he did it with funds that Olivia helped bring in. This gets better and better." My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from David. "Sarah and I are planning to move into the lake house next month. I trust you'll handle the cleanup before we arrive." The lake house. Our weekend getaway that I had found, negotiated, and partially funded with my inheritance. David had conveniently forgotten that part. "They want the lake house too," I told Maya, showing her the message. She actually laughed. "The lake house that's partially in your name? The one you found and helped purchase? Let them try." Just then, Jessica burst into the office, her face flushed with anger. "What do you think you're doing?" she demanded. "David told me you're meeting with lawyers. Are you really going to be this petty?" I remained seated, calm as ever. "Hello, Jessica. I'm just having a chat with some old friends." "Friends?" she sneered, looking at Maya and Marcus. "More like you're trying to cause trouble. David's finally happy. Why can't you just let him go?" Maya stood up, her professional demeanor firmly in place. Ms. Thompson, this is a private meeting. Unless you're here as your brother's legal representative, I'm here to tell Olivia to stop this nonsense. Jessica snapped. She's just proving what I've always said. She's not good enough for our family. A truly loving wife would want David's happiness. I finally stood, gathering my documents calmly. You're right, Jessica. A loving wife would want her husband's happiness. But a smart wife? I held up one of the folders. A smart wife makes sure she's protected. Jessica's face paled slightly as she glimpsed the labeled tabs, investment records, client contributions, property documents, harassment evidence. You've been planning this? She stammered. No, Jessica, I've been preparing. There's a difference. I turned to Maya. I think we have everything we need for now. As Jessica stormed out, Marcus checked his phone and smiled. The preliminary audit of the firm's accounts is complete. Should I share the findings with David's partners? I nodded, thinking of all the times David had dismissed my suggestions about financial transparency in his firm. Yes, I think it's time they knew exactly how their money has been managed. The wheels were in motion now, and soon David and his family would learn that their practical weak Olivia had been anything but. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one you should watch most carefully. 1 month later, I sat in the conference room of David's architecture firm, watching his perfect world crumble. The board members had called an emergency meeting after Marcus's audit revealed David's misuse of company funds. His partners' faces were grim as they reviewed the evidence I provided. So not only did you make unauthorized investments with company money, the senior partner stated, glaring at David, but you also plan to give away company assets, including the lake house property, which was partially purchased with firm funds without board approval. David's face had lost its usual confidence. I can explain. These were temporary arrangements. Temporary? Another partner interrupted. Like the temporary clients Mrs. Chen brought to the firm. The ones who now make up 30% of our annual revenue? I kept my expression neutral, though inside I felt a flutter of satisfaction. They'd finally used my maiden name, not just David's wife anymore. Jessica burst into the room, waving her phone. This is all her fault, she shouted, pointing at me. She's trying to ruin David's life because she can't accept that he found someone better. The senior partner raised an eyebrow. Ms. Thompson, this is a private board meeting. Security will escort you out. As Jessica was led away, still shouting Sarah, David's girlfriend, texted him. Is it true? Are we losing the lake house? You promised me a perfect life. I watched David's face fall as he read the message. His perfect escape plan was dissolving before his eyes. The board has reached a decision, the senior partner announced. Given the circumstances, we're initiating a complete restructuring. Mr. Thompson, you'll be stepping down as managing partner, effective immediately. David slumped in his chair. You can't do this. I built this firm. Actually, I spoke for the first time, my voice steady. We built it together. Every late night, every client meeting, every revision. I was there. I just never needed the credit, until now. The meeting ended with David's resignation. Outside the conference room, he grabbed my arm. Why are you doing this? I was going to take care of you. I gently removed his hand. No, David. You were going to discard me. There's a difference. That evening, as I packed the last of David's things from our house, Jessica showed up one final time. You've destroyed everything, she said, but her voice had lost its edge. Our family's reputation, David's career. No, Jessica. Your brother did that himself. I just showed everyone the truth. She stared at me for a long moment. I never thought you had it in you. All these years I thought you were. Weak? Pathetic? Too practical? I smiled. Sometimes the quiet ones surprise you. 3 months after David's announcement of his simple plan, I stood in my newly redecorated living room. The family photos were gone, replaced by artwork I'd always loved but David had deemed too bold. The investment money had been recovered. The lake house was legally mine, and David's firm had offered me a consulting position, which I politely declined. My phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Final divorce papers signed. Property division complete. You're officially free. I poured myself a glass of wine, the same expensive brand Jessica had carelessly sipped while mocking me. Another message came through, this time from David. I understand now. I'm sorry. Too little too late. Looking out at the sunset through my window, I thought about the lesson my mother had taught me years ago. Never let them see your strength until you need to use it. The power of being underestimated is that no one sees you coming. I raised my glass in a silent toast to the quiet, practical wife who had proven stronger than anyone expected. Sometimes the best revenge isn't in fighting back immediately. It's in waiting, watching, and choosing the perfect moment to show your true strength. The doorbell rang. Outside stood Sarah, looking uncomfortable. I didn't know, she stammered. About the firm, about the money, about any of it. You thought you found your perfect ending. I finished for her. Life's rarely that simple. As I closed the door on David's past and my own, I smiled, thinking of Jessica's words from that first day. Just accept it and move on. I had accepted it, accepted that I deserved better, and I had moved on, just not in the way they'd expected. Sometimes the strongest response isn't in the shouting, but in the silence. And sometimes the person they call weak turns out to be the strongest of them all. It's for your own good, Linda. This amateur work would embarrass our family name at the Heritage Festival, my mother-in-law Margaret declared, her scissors slicing through what she thought was my grandmother's cherished quilt. I stood in her craft room, watching as she butchered the fabric with her improvements, each cut making my heart race, not from distress, but from the effort of hiding my smile. My name is Linda Parker, and at 34, I've spent the last decade perfecting the art of dealing with Margaret Wells, the self-proclaimed queen of the local quilting society. She'd never forgiven me for stealing her precious son David away from the wealthy socialite she handpicked for him. The fact that David and I fell in love while restoring vintage motorcycles, another hobby she deemed unsuitable for a Wells, only added fuel to her disapproval. The festival judges expect perfection. Margaret continued, her perfectly manicured nails tracing over the quilt's surface. These primitive stitches would never win. Really, Linda, if your grandmother was any good at quilting, why didn't she ever enter competitions? I bit my tongue, remembering Grandma Rose's words. Sometimes, sweetheart, the best victory is the one only you know about. My grandmother had been my rock, raising me after my parents' accident when I was 12. She taught me everything: cooking, gardening, and most importantly, the art of quilting. But not just any quilting. Rose Mitchell had a secret technique, one passed down through generations of women in our family. You're right, Margaret, I said softly, watching her pause mid-cut, clearly surprised by my easy agreement. Grandma never did enter any competitions. What I didn't mention was that Rose Mitchell's quilts were actually highly sought after by collectors who recognized her unique signature pattern. A subtle, almost invisible variation in the stitching that made her quilts not just beautiful, but valuable pieces of folk art. Only a handful of her quilts existed, and fewer still had her special pattern. Margaret's eyes narrowed at my compliance. She was used to her subtle battles, my quiet resistance to her attempts to improve everything about me. Well, she said, clearly thrown off balance, I'm glad you're finally seeing reason. This pattern is outdated. The stitching is uneven, and honestly, the color choices are questionable at best. I nodded, picking up a piece of the fabric she'd discarded. The quilt she was destroying was actually a clever replica I'd made specifically for this moment. After years of Margaret's not-so-subtle hints about fixing my grandmother's work, I prepared for the inevitable. The real heirloom was safely stored in a climate-controlled unit across town, along with Grandma's other precious pieces. The Heritage Festival is in 3 days, Margaret announced, pulling out her own expensive fabrics. I'll rework this into something presentable. The Wells family has won the quilting competition for the past 5 years, and I won't let that streak end because of inferior materials. I watched as she began laying out her design, all sharp angles and modern patterns, nothing like the intricate flowing designs my grandmother had created. Margaret's quilts were technically perfect, machine precise, and utterly soulless. She'd never understood that quilting wasn't just about perfect stitches. It was about telling a story through fabric and thread. Would you like help? I offered, knowing her answer before she spoke. Oh no, dear, she said with false sweetness. Why don't you focus on the bake sale instead? Simple things are more your speed. I left her craft room, my phone buzzing with a text from David. Mom's still improving things. My husband knew all about his mother's attempts to remake me into her idea of a proper Wells wife. He'd offered to intervene countless times, but I'd always declined. Some battles were worth fighting quietly. Just fixing Grandma's quilt, I texted back. Everything's going according to plan. Later that evening, as Margaret proudly showed off her progress to David and his father George, I slipped away to my craft room. Hidden behind panels of fabric samples and sewing supplies was a small safe. Inside lay my real entry for the Heritage Festival, a quilt I'd spent the past year creating, incorporating every technique my grandmother had taught me. The pattern seemed simple at first glance, a traditional tree of life design rendered in subtle shades of blue, green, and gold. But within the pattern, visible only to those who knew where to look, was Rose Mitchell's signature technique. Each stitch told a story, creating a secondary pattern that emerged only when the light hit it just right. It was more than a quilt. It was a piece of my history, my grandmother's legacy woven into every careful stitch. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Susan, the Heritage Festival's head judge. Everything set for Friday, your grandmother would be proud. I smiled, remembering the last conversation I'd had with Grandma Rose before she passed away 2 years ago. She'd made me promise to keep our family's quilting tradition alive, but to do it my way. Patience and precision, dear, she'd said, her hands shaking but still able to demonstrate the special stitch one last time. Those who know will know. Margaret's voice carried down the hallway, discussing her plans to display her improved version of my family quilt. It'll be a surprise for everyone, she declared. No one will expect such a modern take on a traditional pattern. Linda will thank me when we win. I closed my safe quietly, touching the simple gold locket I always wore, the one containing a small piece of my grandmother's first quilt. Oh, Margaret, I whispered to myself, you have no idea how right you are about the surprises in store at the festival. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Margaret worked feverishly on her improvement project, completely transforming what she thought was my family heirloom into something unrecognizable. I kept myself busy helping with festival preparations, setting up display areas, and carefully avoiding any mention of quilts or competitions. The evening before the festival, as I carefully packed my real entry away, David came into our room. Mom's finally finished, he said, running a hand through his hair, a nervous habit he'd had since childhood. She wants everyone to see it at breakfast tomorrow before we head to the festival. I leaned into his embrace, feeling the rumble of his laugh. You're really going to let her show that thing to everyone? Sometimes, I said, echoing my grandmother's wisdom, the best lessons come from letting people believe they've won. David kissed the top of my head. Rose Mitchell's granddaughter through and through. Mom has no idea what's coming, does she? I smiled, thinking of the judges' faces when they'd seen my test pieces of the quiet arrangements we'd made for the festival's special exhibition. Let's just say the Heritage Festival is going to be very interesting this year. The morning of the Heritage Festival dawned bright and clear. I sat at Margaret's immaculate dining room table, watching her unveil her masterpiece to the family. The quilt she created from the remnants of my decoy was exactly what I'd expected, technically perfect and completely devoid of character. Notice how I've modernized the dated pattern, Margaret explained, gesturing to the sharp geometric shapes she'd incorporated. The judges will appreciate the innovation. It's a perfect blend of traditional and contemporary. She paused, fixing me with a pointed look. Much better than the original, don't you think, Linda? David squeezed my hand under the table as I nodded pleasantly. It's certainly different, I replied, causing my father-in-law George to hide a smile behind his coffee cup. Unlike his wife, George had always treated me with quiet kindness. He even confided once that I reminded him of his own mother, who had also preferred working with her hands to attending social functions. Different. Margaret's eyes narrowed. It's exceptional. The Wells family has a reputation to uphold at the festival. We can't have subpar work associated with our name. I thought about my own quilt, carefully packed away in its acid-free box. Grandma Rose had always said that true craftsmanship speaks for itself. No need for grand announcements or self-promotion. The quality of the work would always shine through to those who understood it. The Heritage Festival was already bustling when we arrived. The town square had been transformed with white tents and colorful banners, the air filled with the scent of kettle corn and the sound of bluegrass music. Margaret immediately commandeered several volunteers to help her set up her display, positioning her quilt prominently in the center of the Wells family booth. Linda, she called out, make yourself useful and hand out these promotional cards. People should know where this piece came from. The cards, I noticed, made no mention of my grandmother's original work, crediting only Margaret Wells for the design. Actually, I said, checking my phone, I'm needed at the registration tent. They're short-handed this morning. Before Margaret could protest, I slipped away through the crowd. Instead of heading to registration, I made my way to a small tent at the far end of the square. Susan, the head judge, was waiting for me. Everything's ready, she said, helping me unpack my quilt. The special exhibition space is prepared exactly as we discussed. We carefully hung my piece, adjusting the lighting until it was perfect. In the proper light, my grandmother's signature pattern emerged. Subtle variations in the stitching that created a secondary design, visible only to those who knew what to look for. It was like a secret language passed down through generations of women in my family. Rose would be so proud, Susan murmured, stepping back to admire the work. I remember when she taught at the college's textile program. None of us could ever quite figure out how she achieved this effect. I smiled, remembering countless hours spent practicing with my grandmother, her patient hands guiding mine through the complex stitching pattern. It took me years to master it, I admitted. Every time I thought I had it, she'd show me something new, some tiny detail I'd missed. Back at the main exhibition area, Margaret was holding court, describing her innovative techniques to a group of polite listeners. I caught David's eye and winked, our signal that everything was in place. The judging began at noon. Margaret stood proudly by her display, confident in her inevitable victory. I watched as the judges made their rounds, taking notes and examining each entry carefully. When they reached Margaret's quilt, she launched into her prepared speech about modernizing traditional patterns. And where did the original design come from? One judge asked, adjusting her glasses. Oh, it was just an old family piece, Margaret said dismissively. Quite primitive, really. I saw the potential and gave it the refinement it needed. The judge made a non-committal noise and moved on, leaving Margaret slightly flustered. This wasn't following her usual script of effusive praise and immediate recognition. At 2 o'clock, Susan took the stage for the special announcement we planned. Ladies and gentlemen, her voice rang out over the festival grounds. This year we have a unique privilege. Many of you may remember Rose Mitchell, whose quilts were legendary in our community. I saw Margaret's head snap up at the mention of my grandmother's name. We're honored to present a special exhibition of Rose Mitchell's work, including a never-before-seen piece that demonstrates her famous hidden pattern technique. Susan paused, letting the murmur of excitement ripple through the crowd. Even more special, this new work comes from her granddaughter, who has mastered Rose's unique method. The crowd began moving toward the small tent, Margaret among them, her face a mix of confusion and disbelief. I stayed back, watching as people filed in to view my quilt. From where I stood, I could hear the gasps of recognition from those who had known my grandmother's work, the excited whispers as they pointed out the subtle pattern emerging in the light. It can't be, I heard Margaret say, her voice carrying over the crowd. Linda doesn't, she couldn't. But I could and I had. Years of patience, practice, and quiet determination had led to this moment, not for revenge or triumph, but for honor. Honor of my grandmother's legacy, her art, and her wisdom. David appeared at my side, slipping an arm around my waist. Should we go in? He asked softly. I leaned into his embrace, watching as Margaret stood frozen before my quilt, her carefully constructed world of superiority crumbling around her. Not yet, I said. Let's give her a moment to process it all. Through the tent's opening, I could see my quilt catching the afternoon light, the hidden pattern shimmering like a secret finally revealed. Grandma Rose had always said that the best lessons come when we least expect them, and that true art speaks to the heart without needing to raise its voice. I touched my locket, feeling the small piece of my grandmother's first quilt safely tucked inside. Somewhere, I knew she was watching, and I hoped she was proud of how I'd chosen to reveal her legacy, not with anger or confrontation, but with the quiet confidence she had always taught me to embrace. The afternoon light filtered through the festival tents as I finally made my way to the special exhibition space. Margaret stood there, still staring at my quilt, her face a complex mixture of emotions. For once, she seemed at a loss for words. The secret is in the tension of each stitch, I said quietly, moving to stand beside her. Grandma Rose spent years perfecting it. She said the trick was knowing exactly how much pressure to apply. Too much, and the pattern becomes obvious. Too little, and it disappears completely. Margaret turned to me, and for the first time since I'd known her, I saw something different in her eyes. Not judgment or criticism, but a glimmer of understanding. "The one I modified," she said hesitantly. "It wasn't the real one, was it?" I shook my head. "No, I knew how much you wanted to improve my grandmother's work, so I made a replica. The original is safe, along with her other pieces." "Why did you ever say anything about your skills, about Rose's technique?" I thought carefully before answering. Grandma always said that true mastery doesn't need to announce itself. She taught me that sometimes the quietest voice carries the most weight. Susan approached us, her judge's clipboard in hand. "Linda, would you mind explaining the technique to our visitors? We have quite a crowd gathering." For the next hour, I demonstrated the basics of the stitching pattern, carefully explaining how each element worked together to create the hidden design. Margaret stayed at the back of the group, watching intently as I worked. I could see her hands moving slightly, unconsciously mimicking the motions I was showing. Later, as the festival was winding down and the awards were being announced, Margaret approached me again. She held her honorable mention ribbon, twisting it between her fingers. "I've been thinking," she said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "Your grandmother, she taught at the college?" "Yes, in the textile arts program. She loved sharing her knowledge with anyone who wanted to learn." Margaret was quiet for a moment. Do you teach?" The question caught me off guard. "Sometimes. Small groups usually, people who are interested in traditional techniques." "Would you consider," she paused, seeming to struggle with the words, "would you consider teaching me? The real way, I mean, not just the surface level stuff I've been doing." I studied my mother-in-law's face, seeing past the perfect makeup and carefully maintained exterior to something vulnerable underneath. "It's not easy," I warned. "It takes patience, practice, and a willingness to make mistakes." "I know," she said quietly, "but I think it's time I learned." David found us sitting together at my demonstration table, where I was showing Margaret the basic framework of my grandmother's technique. He raised his eyebrows in surprise but smiled warmly. "Mom," he said, "they're asking for all the winners to gather for photos." Margaret looked at her honorable mention ribbon, then at my Best in Show award. "You go ahead, Linda. You earned it." "Actually," I said, standing up, "why don't you come with me? We can talk more about those lessons afterward." As we walked together toward the photography area, I touched the locket at my neck, thinking of Grandma Rose. She'd always insisted that the true value of any skill lay not in keeping it to yourself, but in sharing it with others, even those who might have once dismissed it. The festival ended as the sun was setting, casting long shadows across the town square. As we packed up our quilts and displays, Margaret helped me carefully fold my winning piece. "You know," she said, smoothing the fabric with unexpected gentleness, "I always wondered why Rose Mitchell never entered competitions. Now I understand. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone." I smiled, remembering my grandmother's quiet confidence. She used to say that competitions were just one way to measure success. The real achievement was in creating something that would last, something that would tell our stories long after we're gone. That evening, as David and I drove home, he reached over and squeezed my hand. "You've changed something in her, you know. I've never seen Mom willing to admit she has something to learn." I thought about Margaret's requests for lessons, about the genuine interest I'd seen in her eyes as I demonstrated the stitching technique. Sometimes people just need to be shown a different way of seeing things. The next morning, I received a text from Margaret. "When can we start the lessons?" I smiled as I typed my reply, thinking of Grandma Rose and her patient teachings. Some traditions weren't meant to be modernized or improved, but rather preserved and passed on with love and understanding. As I set up my sewing room for Margaret's first lesson, I knew that while the stitches might not be perfect at first, we were creating something more valuable than just another quilt. We were stitching together a new chapter in our family's story. And somewhere, I was sure, Grandma Rose was smiling. The church bells tolled softly as I stood at my mother's casket, my heart breaking not just from grief, but from the betrayal unfolding before me. My sister-in-law Sophia's voice cut through the somber silence like a knife. "Since we're all gathered here, she announced, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "James wants everyone to know he's found true happiness with Amanda. They don't need marriage papers or legal complications." The gathered mourners gasped. My husband James, standing next to his mistress Amanda, didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just smirked, his hand resting possessively on her waist. I remained silent, tears falling freely now, not for him, but for my mother who'd warned me about James just weeks before she passed. My name is Elizabeth, and at 34, I never imagined I'd be burying my mother and losing my husband on the same day. But perhaps I should start from the beginning, from the moment I first suspected something was wrong. 3 months ago, my mother was diagnosed with terminal cancer. During one of her lucid moments in the hospital, she grabbed my hand and whispered, "The church cameras, Elizabeth. Check the security footage. James, Sophia, they're planning something." I dismissed her words as medication-induced paranoia. James had been distant, yes, but I attributed it to stress. He'd been working late, taking mysterious calls, and spending more time with his sister Sophia. I was too focused on my mother's deteriorating health to question it deeply, but Mom kept insisting. "Promise me you'll check," she pleaded. Even in her final days, she was trying to protect me, so I promised, more to ease her mind than anything else. The night before the funeral, I couldn't sleep. My mother's words haunted me. At 2 a.m., I drove to the church where she'd been a devoted member for 30 years. Father Michael, who'd known my mother for decades, was still awake, preparing for the service. "Elizabeth," he said, his face etched with concern. "I was going to call you tomorrow. There's something you should see." He led me to his office and pulled up the security footage from the past month. My hands trembled as I watched the scenes unfold on his computer screen. There was James meeting with Sophia and a blonde woman, Amanda, in the church garden late at night. Their voices were clear through the high-quality audio system my mother had helped the church install last year. "Everything's arranged," Sophia was saying. "We'll announce it at the funeral. Elizabeth will be too devastated about her mother to make a scene, and since there's no marriage registration or proper documentation, she can't claim anything." James laughed. "Perfect timing. She's been so distracted with her dying mother, she hasn't even noticed I've moved most of my assets. Amanda and I can start fresh, no legal ties, no messy divorce." Amanda's voice was sickeningly sweet. "What about the house? It's in both their names, isn't it?" "Don't worry," Sophia assured her. "I've got a plan for that too. By the time Elizabeth realizes what's happening, it'll be too late." I watched multiple meetings, each one revealing more of their calculated plan. They'd chosen my mother's funeral as the perfect moment to humiliate me, believing my grief would render me powerless to respond. Father Michael placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "Your mother noticed them meeting here. She couldn't prove anything, but she knew something was wrong. That's why she insisted on upgrading the security system last month. She wanted to protect you, even after she was gone." I sat there, numb with shock, but also filled with a strange sense of calm. My mother, even in her final weeks, had been working to expose their betrayal. She'd known somehow and had laid the groundwork for me to discover the truth. "I've saved copies of everything," Father Michael said quietly. "Your mother made me promise to keep them safe. She also left something else for you." He handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was a letter and a USB drive. My mother's handwriting, shaky but determined, filled the page. "My dearest Elizabeth, if you're reading this, my suspicions were right. I've watched James and Sophia plotting in our church, desecrating this sacred space with their schemes. But darling, I've made sure you're protected. The USB contains account statements, property deeds, and other documents you'll need. I've also recorded conversations I overheard between them when they visited me in the hospital, thinking I was too medicated to understand. Don't let them see you break. You're stronger than they know. When they make their move, remember, I've given you everything you need to fight back. All my love." Mom, Father Michael helped me review the contents of the USB drive. My mother, despite her illness, had meticulously documented everything. She even hired a private investigator to track James' financial movements over the past 6 months. So now, standing at her funeral, watching Sophia's dramatic announcement, I felt my mother's strength flowing through me. James thought he timed this perfectly, announcing his betrayal when I was at my lowest point. He thought my grief would silence me. But my mother, my brilliant, forward-thinking mother, had ensured I wouldn't face this alone. As Sophia finished her announcement, I wiped my tears and straightened my shoulders. The security cameras were still recording, capturing every moment of their cruelty. James stepped forward, probably expecting me to crumble. "Elizabeth," he said, his voice patronizing, "I hope you understand. These things happen." I looked at him, really looked at him, and felt nothing but pity. He had no idea what was coming. My mother's last gift to me wasn't just evidence. It was the strength to stand up for myself. "Yes, James," I replied softly. "These things do happen. And sometimes they're caught on camera." His smile faltered just slightly, but enough to let me know my words had hit their mark. Sophia's triumphant expression wavered. But this was just the beginning. My mother had taught me well. Sometimes the best revenge is letting your enemies think they've won, right before you show them how badly they've lost. After the funeral, I maintained my composure as mourners offered their condolences, many avoiding eye contact after Sophia's shocking announcement. James and Amanda had already left, probably to celebrate their victory, while Sophia lingered, watching me with a smug smile. Back at my mother's house, I sat in her study, surrounded by the familiar scent of her perfume and decades of memories. The USB drive from my mother contained more than just security footage. There were detailed financial records, emails she'd intercepted between James and Sophia, and most importantly, a document that made my heart stop, proof that James had forged my signature on property transfer papers. My phone buzzed with a text from James. "I'll send someone to pack my things tomorrow. Don't make this difficult." I smiled, thinking about the cameras I'd installed throughout our house last week, following the trail of breadcrumbs my mother had left me. Sure enough, the footage showed James and Sophia entering our home multiple times while I was at the hospital, removing documents and valuables, discussing their plans in detail. The best part, Sophia had said in one recording, is that she doesn't even know the house is practically empty. We've been moving things out for weeks. James had laughed. "Elizabeth's too trusting. She never even checked the safe or the accounts. Amanda and I can start fresh, and she'll have nothing." What they didn't know was that my mother had already helped me secure the most important things. 3 weeks before she passed, she'd insisted I move all my important documents and family heirlooms to her house. "Just in case," she'd said with a knowing look. A knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was Father Michael. "Elizabeth," he said gently, "there's something else your mother wanted you to know." He handed me another envelope. "She made me promise to give this to you after the funeral." Inside was a letter from my mother's lawyer, dated just 2 weeks ago. My hands trembled as I read it. My mother had transferred her house and considerable assets into a trust in my name, with explicit instructions that neither James nor his family could ever access it. "Your mother was a brilliant woman," Father Michael said. "She knew James would try to take everything, so she made sure you had a safe haven." I nodded, tears flowing freely now. Even in her final days, my mother had been protecting me, setting up a safety net I didn't even know I needed. The next morning, James arrived with Amanda and Sophia, pulling up in a moving truck. I watched through the window as they strutted up to the front door, clearly expecting to find me broken and defeated. "Elizabeth," James called out as they entered, "we're here for my things. Don't make this dramatic." I stepped out of the kitchen, calm and collected. "Of course not. But before you start, there's something you should see." I led them to the living room where I'd set up a large TV screen. Without a word, I pressed play. Their faces paled as they watched themselves on the security footage, discussing their plans in detail, laughing about deceiving me, plotting to strip me of everything. "You recorded us?" Sophia sputtered, her confidence cracking. "Actually, my mother did," I replied. "The church's security system, remember? The one she insisted on upgrading. She heard your late-night meetings, saw everything you planned." James stepped forward, his face darkening. "Those recordings won't hold up. There's no marriage registration, no proper documentation. You can't prove anything." I smiled, thinking of my mother's foresight. "That's where you're wrong, James. Let me show you something else." I played the footage from our house cameras, showing him and Sophia removing items, forging documents. Then I pulled out the file my mother's lawyer had prepared. "Forging my signature on property transfers? That's a serious crime," I said, watching their faces drain of color. "And there's more. Every late-night meeting, every fraudulent document, every conspiracy between you three, it's all documented." Amanda started backing away from James, her confident facade crumbling. "You said this would be simple," she hissed at him. "You said she wouldn't fight back." "They never thought I would," I said quietly. "That's why they chose my mother's funeral to make their announcement. They thought grief would make me weak." Sophia tried to regain control. "You're bluffing. You can't prove any of this." I turned to her, feeling a strength I hadn't known I possessed. "Would you like to explain to the police why you're on camera discussing how to defraud me? Or should we start with the forged documents?" James's face had turned ashen. He knew I had him cornered. My mother hadn't just left me evidence, she'd left me the power to destroy their carefully constructed plan. "Get out," I said calmly. "All of you. My lawyer will be in touch about the stolen property and forged documents." Standing in the doorway of my mother's house, my house now, I watched them retreat, their grand scheme crumbling around them. My mother's voice seemed to whisper in my ear, "Never let them see you break, darling. Show them what you're made of." And that's exactly what I intended to do. 3 months after the funeral, I sat in my lawyer's office, watching James and Sophia squirm as the evidence mounted against them. The police investigation had uncovered even more than my mother's recordings: bank transfers, forged documents, and a trail of premeditated fraud that spanned months. Amanda had already turned on them, providing a detailed statement about their plans in exchange for immunity. She'd revealed how James had promised her a luxurious life with my assets, how Sophia had orchestrated the timing of their announcement to cause maximum humiliation. "Your mother," my lawyer said, sliding another document across the desk, "was thorough in her documentation. She even recorded their conversations during her hospital stays when they thought she was sedated." The recordings were damning. James and Sophia discussing their plans beside my dying mother's bed, not realizing she was alert and recording everything on her phone. Their cruelty had been their undoing. James attempted one last manipulation. "Elizabeth," he pleaded, "we can work this out. Think about our history together." I thought about our history all right, how he'd planned to leave me destitute, how he conspired with his sister to humiliate me at my mother's funeral, how they'd laughed about my trust and grief. "The only thing we're working out," I replied calmly, "is how much you'll be paying in restitution." Sophia, her designer outfit now wrinkled from stress, attempted to intervene. "This is ridiculous. We're family." "Family?" I turned to her. "Family doesn't plot to steal someone's home. Family doesn't use a mother's funeral to hurt her daughter. You're not family, you're criminals." The evidence was irrefutable. James faced charges for fraud and forgery. Sophia was implicated in conspiracy and theft. Their carefully constructed plan had crumbled, leaving them facing serious legal consequences. My mother's house became my sanctuary as I rebuilt my life. I discovered she'd left me more than just evidence. She'd left me a legacy of strength. The trust she'd set up protected not just her assets, but also contained letters of encouragement, advice, and love. "Remember," she'd written, "sometimes people show you who they really are. Believe them the first time, but be smarter than they expect." One evening, as I sorted through old photos in the study, I found a final note from her. "Dearest Elizabeth, by now you've probably faced their betrayal head-on. I'm sorry I couldn't shield you from their cruelty, but I could prepare you for it. You're stronger than James or Sophia ever imagined. Their mistake was underestimating you and me. I've watched you grow into an amazing woman. Don't let their actions dim your light. Sometimes losing people who betray us is actually a gain. You're free now, darling. Build the life you deserve. All my love, Mom." 6 months later, I stood in my mother's garden, now blooming with the roses she loved. James and Sophia had both taken plea deals, avoiding jail time but facing significant financial penalties and probation. Amanda had moved to another state, her dreams of luxury destroyed by her own testimony. Father Michael visited occasionally, bringing updates from the church community and sharing stories about my mother. "She would be proud," he said one afternoon, "not just of how you handled everything, but of who you've become because of it." I transformed my mother's house into a sanctuary for women escaping difficult situations, honoring her memory by helping others find their strength. The security cameras that had caught James and Sophia's betrayal now protected women rebuilding their lives. Last week, I received a letter from Sophia. She was apologizing, claiming she regretted everything. I placed it unopened in a box with James's similar attempts at reconciliation. Some bridges, once burned, should stay ashes. My mother's last gift hadn't just been the evidence to fight back, it had been the wisdom to know my worth. She taught me that sometimes the biggest betrayals lead to the most profound freedom. Standing in her garden, surrounded by the blooming life she planted, I felt at peace. James and Sophia had thought they could break me by choosing my darkest moment to strike. Instead, they'd unleash a strength they never knew I possessed. A strength my mother had always seen in me, had carefully nurtured, and had protected even from beyond. In trying to destroy me, they'd actually set me free. And that, perhaps, was the greatest justice of all. My mother's voice seemed to whisper in the evening breeze. See, darling, sometimes the best revenge is living well. And that's exactly what I intended to do, live well, help others, and honor the incredible woman who taught me that true strength often comes disguised as betrayal. The security cameras still recorded, but now they captured stories of healing and hope. My mother would have liked that, turning instruments of protection into tools of transformation. In the end, her legacy wasn't just about surviving betrayal, it was about thriving despite it. Pack your bags, Emma. Your time living off my brother's wealth is over. Jessica's voice rang through the house, dripping with satisfaction. I stood in my kitchen, gripping my coffee mug as my sister-in-law paraded around like she owned the place. Behind her, my husband Marcus leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, wearing that expensive new watch his 24-year-old assistant had probably picked out. My name is Emma Sullivan, and at 35, I was watching my 12-year marriage crumble while my sister-in-law took inventory of what she claimed her brother's mistress would want to keep. You can't just throw me out, I said calmly, taking another sip of my coffee. The familiar taste grounded me even as Jessica's shrill laughter pierced the air. Actually, we can. Marcus never registered your marriage properly, did you, brother dear? She turned to him with a triumphant smile. Which means technically, you were never really married. Everything belongs to him. Marcus finally spoke, his voice carrying that newfound coldness I'd grown familiar with over the past few months. Megan needs a fresh start, Emma. And this house, well, it's perfect for her. Young, modern, unlike some things around here. I felt the sting of his words but kept my expression neutral. After 15 years together, 12 of them married, Marcus had decided his assistant Megan was his future. The same Megan who'd been sending him late-night texts for months. The same Megan who'd somehow convinced him that our marriage registration had been mishandled. Jessica circled the kitchen island, her designer heels clicking against the hardwood floors that I'd chosen 3 years ago during our renovation. You know what's funny? She mused, running her finger along the marble countertop. All those years you spent playing the perfect wife, acting like you belonged in our family, and now look, you'll be homeless by the weekend. I placed my mug in the sink, taking care to rinse it thoroughly. Some habits die hard. Is that what you think? Oh please, Jessica scoffed. Don't try to act tough now. We all know you came from nothing. No family money, no connections, just a small-town girl who got lucky with my brother. Well, your luck's run out. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of the man I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The one who used to defend me against his sister's casual cruelty. But that man disappeared as quickly as he'd surfaced. Emma, he said, attempting to sound reasonable, you can stay with your friend Sarah until you figure things out. I'll even give you some money too. How generous, I interrupted, my voice steady. But that won't be necessary. Jessica laughed again, the sound reminiscent of breaking glass. Are you delusional? This house belongs to the Sullivan family. Our grandmother left it to Marcus. You have no claim to it. I walked to the study, aware of their confused stares following me. The antique desk by the window had been my favorite spot in the house. Not that Jessica or Marcus ever noticed. They were too busy counting their inherited wealth to appreciate the actual treasures their grandmother had left behind. You know, I said, opening the desk's hidden compartment, your grandmother and I used to have tea here every Wednesday. She loved telling stories about the family history, about building this estate from nothing. I pulled out a sealed envelope, aged but intact. She also loved to talk about trust and loyalty. Marcus stepped forward, his brow furrowed. What are you talking about? What's that? This, I held up the envelope. This is the real family trust document, the one your grandmother amended 3 months before she died. The one she gave me for safekeeping because, in her words, only someone who truly loves this house will protect its legacy. Jessica's face paled. You're lying. All the trust documents are with our family lawyer. Are they? I smiled, remembering the last conversation I'd had with Marcus's grandmother. She'd seen right through her grandchildren's materialistic facade. Maybe you should call Mr. Patterson. He helped your grandmother make these changes after all. Marcus reached for the envelope, but I pulled it back. Don't worry, I said, gathering my keys. Mr. Patterson has copies. In fact, he's expecting my call. I headed for the door, pausing to look back at their stunned faces. Oh, and Jessica, you might want to hold off on measuring for new curtains. Something tells me Megan won't be needing them. As I walked to my car, I could hear Jessica's shrill voice demanding answers from Marcus. But I wasn't worried. Their grandmother had taught me more than just the value of family history. She taught me the importance of being prepared. I pulled out my phone and dialed Mr. Patterson's number. It was time to show them exactly what their grandmother's legacy really meant. Mr. Patterson's office hadn't changed in the 15 years I'd known him. The same leather chairs, the same towering bookshelves, even the same slight scent of pipe tobacco that reminded me so much of Marcus's grandmother. The only difference today was the tension in the air as Marcus and Jessica sat across from me, their faces a mix of anger and barely concealed panic. This must be some kind of mistake, Jessica insisted, her manicured nails drumming against the armrest. Grandmother would never. Actually, Mr. Patterson interrupted, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. Mrs. Sullivan was quite clear about her wishes. He opened the trust document I kept safe all these years, along with his own copy. 3 months before her passing, she made significant amendments to the family trust. Marcus leaned forward, his jaw tight. What kind of amendments? The elderly lawyer cleared his throat. The main property, including the house and surrounding grounds, was placed in a separate trust. The sole trustee. He paused, looking directly at me, his Emma. That's impossible. Jessica shot up from her chair. She's not even legally married to Marcus. She's nobody. Mr. Patterson raised an eyebrow. Regarding the marriage, I have some clarification there as well. He pulled out another document. Your grandmother personally ensured their marriage was properly registered. She kept a copy here in my office. I watched the color drain from Marcus's face. All his plans, all his assumptions about our invalid marriage crumbled in an instant. But why? Marcus finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Why would grandmother do this? Perhaps, Mr. Patterson said, you should read her letter. He handed Marcus an envelope I'd never seen before. Marcus's hands shook as he read aloud. My dearest grandchildren, if you're reading this, then Emma has finally opened the envelope I entrusted to her. I've watched for years as you took our family's legacy for granted, measuring its worth only in dollars and cents. But Emma, she understood. She spent time with me, listened to our family's stories, appreciated the history in every room of that house. While you saw property values, she saw memories. While you counted square footage, she preserved photographs and restored old furniture. The truth is, the Sullivan legacy isn't about money. It's about honor, dedication, and love. Emma has shown more of these qualities than either of you. Marcus, my dear boy, if you're reading this with your wife by your side, cherishing what you've built together, then perhaps I was wrong. But if you're here because you've forgotten the value of loyalty and family, then I made the right choice. The house and the responsibility of preserving our family's true legacy belongs to Emma. With love and hope for wisdom, Grandmother Sullivan. The silence that followed was deafening. Jessica had sunk back into her chair, her earlier bravado completely deflated. Marcus stared at the letter, reading it over and over, as if hoping the words would somehow change. There's more, Mr. Patterson added, shuffling through his papers. Mrs. Sullivan also left specific instructions about the family's business holdings. Jessica's head snapped up. The company's shares. Yes. Upon any attempt to contest Emma's position as trustee or any proven infidelity within the marriage, he glanced meaningfully at Marcus. 30% of the Sullivan Group shares would be transferred to the charitable foundation Emma helps run. I sat there, absorbing the magnitude of what Marcus's grandmother had done. She hadn't just protected me. She'd ensured that her family's legacy would be preserved one way or another. She knew, Marcus said suddenly, looking at me. Somehow she knew I would. That I might. She knew people, I corrected gently. She understood that sometimes we need consequences to remind us of what matters. Jessica stood up abruptly. This isn't over. We can contest this, Marcus. She can't just. Actually, Mr. Patterson interjected. Any legal contest would trigger the share transfer clause immediately. The foundation would become a major stakeholder in Sullivan Group. Is that what you want, Jessica? As Jessica sank back into her chair, defeated, I thought about all the Wednesday afternoons I'd spent with their grandmother, drinking tea and listening to her stories. She taught me about more than just family history. She taught me about strength, patience, and the importance of standing your ground. I gathered my belongings and stood up. Mr. Patterson, thank you for everything. Marcus, Jessica, I'll be at the house if you need to collect any personal items. Just call first. As I reached the door, Marcus called out, Emma, wait. Please. We can talk about this. I turned back one last time. You know where to find me. I'll be in the study, having tea just like your grandmother taught me. A month passed and autumn painted the Sullivan estate in shades of gold and crimson. I sat in the study, sipping tea from Mrs. Sullivan's favorite china cup, when Sarah dropped by with dinner. I still can't believe it, she said, settling into the armchair by the window. All those years you spent with their grandmother, none of us knew she was planning this. I smiled, remembering the quiet afternoons with the elderly woman who'd become more of a mother to me than a grandmother-in-law. She always said the best surprises come wrapped in patience. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Through the window, I spotted Marcus's car in the driveway. He'd been trying to reach me for weeks, leaving messages about wanting to talk, about making things right. Should I go? Sarah asked, but I shook my head. No, stay. Whatever he has to say, he can say it in front of my real family. Marcus looked different when I opened the door, humble somehow. The expensive watch was gone, replaced by the simple one I'd given him years ago. He carried a familiar wooden box under his arm. Emma, he said softly, can we talk? I led him to the study, where Sarah's presence clearly surprised him. He hesitated before sitting down, placing a box carefully on the desk. I found this in my office, he began. It's grandmother's recipe box. The one she used to keep all her special occasion dishes in. I thought you should have it. I recognized the box immediately. Mrs. Sullivan and I had spent countless hours going through those recipes, her elegant handwriting telling stories of family gatherings and holiday traditions. Megan left, he continued, his voice thick with regret. After the trust revelation, after everything came out, she said she didn't sign up for this kind of drama. He laughed bitterly. Turns out she was more interested in the Sullivan name than in me. I'm sorry, I said, and meant it. Despite everything, seeing him in pain didn't bring me joy. Jessica's different too, he added. The threat of losing those shares, it made her realize how close we came to destroying everything grandmother built. She's been going through old family photos, asking about the stories you and grandmother used to talk about. I poured another cup of tea, offering it to him out of habit. He took it, his hands shaking slightly. I was so wrong, Emma, about everything. I got caught up in the excitement of something new, something that made me feel young again. I forgot what real love looks like. Sarah shifted in her chair, a silent reminder of her presence and support. Your grandmother knew, I said quietly. She knew that love isn't about excitement or youth. It's about building something together, preserving what matters, creating a legacy worth protecting. Marcus nodded, tears in his eyes. Can we? Is there any way we can try again? I know I don't deserve it, but... No, I interrupted gently. We can't go back, Marcus. Your grandmother didn't create this trust to save our marriage. She did it to save her family's legacy. And that's what I intend to do. I opened the recipe box, pulling out a folded paper tucked between the pages. Look what I found last week. Her Christmas pudding recipe. The one she made every year. The one you and Jessica loved so much as children. His eyes lit up with recognition. I remember. She never wrote it down, said it had to be passed on in person. She taught it to me, I said softly. The Christmas before she died. Said someday I'd need to teach it to the next generation of Sullivans. Marcus wiped his eyes. You were always more of a Sullivan than I was. No, I corrected him. I just understood what it meant to be one. Your grandmother saw that. That's why she trusted me with this house, with these memories. Sarah reached over and squeezed my hand. a gesture that spoke volumes about true friendship and support. "The holidays are coming up," I said, standing to walk Marcus to the door. "I'll be making her Christmas pudding. You and Jessica are welcome to join us, not as husband and wife, but as family. That's what your grandmother would have wanted." Marcus paused at the doorway. "Thank you, Emma, for preserving not just the house, but the heart of what grandmother built." After he left, Sarah and I returned to the study. The evening light filtered through the windows, casting warm shadows on the antique desk where Mrs. Sullivan and I had spent so many afternoons. "You know," Sarah said, "she'd be proud of you, not just for standing your ground, but for understanding what she was really protecting." I picked up the recipe box, running my fingers over its worn edges. Inside were more than just recipes. They were stories, traditions, pieces of a legacy that would live on through the generations. "She used to say that a house is just walls and windows," I replied, "but a home is built with love, understanding, and forgiveness. That's the real Sullivan legacy." As the sun set over the estate, I felt at peace. This house, these memories, this legacy, they were exactly where they belonged, and so was I. The text came while I was finishing my shift at the hospital. "Guess what I found in your dad's office? Your precious college fund. Thanks for the early inheritance, sis. Time to live my best life." My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. Instead, I felt an odd sense of calm as I read Amanda's gloating message. My stepsister had finally taken the bait I'd spent months carefully laying out. "My name is Olivia Chin, and at 26, I'm a resident surgeon who's learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply being 10 steps ahead. You won't believe what your sister just did." My dad's voice trembled through the phone 20 minutes later. "Amanda found the account documents and, Olivia, I'm so sorry. She took everything." "How much?" I asked, keeping my voice steady as I changed out of my scrubs. $500,000. Your entire college fund. She transferred it all to her account this morning. I only just found out." He sounded devastated, probably remembering how my late mother had set up that fund, adding to it every month since I was born. "It's okay, Dad," I said, surprising him with my calmness. "Actually, can you come over tonight? There's something you need to know." Amanda's next text buzzed through. "Shopping spree time. Always knew being your stepsister would pay off someday. You were so stuck up about your precious college fund, never sharing a dime. Well, guess what? It's all mine now." I smiled, thinking about the real college fund, safely tucked away in an offshore account my mother had set up before she passed. The account Amanda found, that was the trap I'd set 3 months ago when I first discovered her snooping through Dad's office. The college fund documents she found were perfect forgeries, leading to an account I'd set up specifically for this purpose. Every dollar in it was carefully sourced and documented, with a clear trail leading back to some questionable transactions I'd discovered while going through my stepmother Patricia's old financial records. You see, 6 months ago, I found evidence that Patricia had been running a small-scale money laundering operation through her real estate business. Nothing too obvious, just enough to supplement their lifestyle and fuel Amanda's shopping addiction. I kept that information to myself, biding my time. Then I noticed Amanda going through Dad's files late at night, clearly looking for something. It didn't take much to figure out what. She'd always been jealous of my college fund, constantly complaining about how unfair it was that I had free money while she had to work retail. So I created a trail of breadcrumbs. A carelessly hidden folder in Dad's desk. Bank statements showing regular deposits, a forgotten sticky note with account details. Dad arrived at my apartment that evening, looking exhausted. "Olivia, I've already called the police, but Amanda's claiming you gave her permission to access the account. Patricia is backing her up, saying you mentioned wanting to share it with your sister." I gestured for him to sit down and pulled out my laptop. "Dad, there's something you need to see. But first, has Amanda spent any of the money yet?" He nodded miserably. "She's already transferred most of it to different accounts. Started making large purchases. Patricia says we should just let it go, that it's fair since you've already finished medical school." I turned my laptop around to show him the real bank statements. "That money Amanda took. It's not my college fund. Mom was smarter than that." His eyes widened as he read through the documents. "But if that's not your college fund, what did Amanda actually take?" Just then, my phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. Just bought my dream car. And put a deposit down on a condo. You should be happy for me, sis. I deserve this way more than you do. I showed Dad the text, then pulled up another document. Remember how Patricia always seemed to have extra money, even when her business was struggling? I found these transactions while organizing your files last spring. The account Amanda stole from. It's filled with money that Patricia's been laundering through her real estate deals. Dad's face went pale. What are you saying? I'm saying that I checked my watch, 20 minutes, Amanda's going to get a call from the bank's fraud department. They've been monitoring that account since I flagged it 3 months ago. Every purchase she makes is being tracked. You set this up? Dad's voice was barely a whisper. No, Dad, Patricia set this up years ago. I just made sure Amanda found it. Everything she's doing now, the transfers, the purchases. It's all creating a perfect paper trail leading right back to Patricia's money laundering operation. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a call from Amanda. I let it go to voicemail, already knowing what it was about. The bank would be calling her about suspicious activity, launching an investigation that would uncover years of Patricia's financial crimes. I should go home, Dad said, standing up shakily. Try to stop her before. Before what? I interrupted gently. Before she faces the consequences of her actions? She stole what she thought was my entire future, Dad. She didn't just take it, she gloated about it. Let her learn what happens when you take things that don't belong to you. He looked at me for a long moment, seeing not just his daughter but my mother's daughter, someone who knew how to play the long game. My phone buzzed again with another text from Amanda. Hey, something weird is happening with the bank. Call me S.A.P. I turned to Dad. You should probably head home. Things are about to get interesting. As he left, looking both proud and terrified, I sat back and waited for the chaos to unfold. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting people walk right into the traps they set for themselves. I picked up my phone to check the time just as another message came through from Amanda. What did you do? The bank is asking about money laundering. Call me now. I smiled, thinking of my mother and how she taught me to always be 3 steps ahead. The real college fund was safe. Amanda and Patricia were about to learn some hard lessons about karma, and I hadn't had to lift a finger. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being prepared. The next morning, my apartment doorbell rang at 6 a.m. I opened it to find Amanda, her perfectly maintained appearance now disheveled, mascara streaking down her face. What did you do? She shrieked, trying to push past me into the apartment. The bank froze everything. They're saying something about illegal money and investigations. I stepped aside, letting her storm in. There was no point fighting. This confrontation was inevitable. I didn't do anything, Amanda. You're the one who stole money from an account that wasn't yours. That was your college fund, she spat, pacing my living room like a caged animal. I took what you owed me after all these years of flaunting your privileges. I sat down calmly on my couch, watching her unravel. Did you really think my mother, a financial advisor, would leave my college fund so poorly protected? That money you took came from your mom's special account. You know, the one she uses for her creative real estate transactions. Amanda's face went pale. What are you talking about? The unexplained deposits, the mysterious cash buyers who never seem to exist, your shopping sprees with money that appears out of nowhere. I pulled out a folder and set it on the coffee table. It's all here. Every transaction, every fake buyer, every laundered dollar. And now, thanks to your greed, the bank is investigating all of it. You set me up, she whispered, realization dawning in her eyes. No, Amanda, you set yourself up. I just let you do what you do best. Take things that don't belong to you. Her phone buzzed, Patricia's name flashing on the screen. Amanda's hands shook as she answered it on speaker. The FBI is here. Patricia's voice was panicked. Amanda, what did you do with that money? They're asking about all the transfers. I could hear male voices in the background, official-sounding terms like warrant and financial records floating through the speaker. Mom, Amanda's voice cracked. The money, it wasn't Olivia's college fund. It was yours. The one from your business. The silence on the other end was deafening. When Patricia spoke again, her voice was ice cold. Get home. Now. Amanda ended the call, looking at me with a mixture of hatred and fear. You've ruined everything. You did that all on your own, I replied. Both of you did. Years of taking advantage of Dad, stealing, manipulating. Did you really think there wouldn't be consequences? She grabbed her designer bag, probably purchased with laundered money, and headed for the door. This isn't over. Actually, it is. The FBI doesn't take financial crimes lightly. Better call the lawyer, sis. After she left, I called Dad. He answered on the first ring. The FBI is here, he said, his voice hollow. They're going through Patricia's office. How long have you known? About her money laundering? 6 months. I found the evidence while helping you organize the home office, remember? But I needed proof that couldn't be explained away. Amanda's theft and subsequent spending spree provided that perfectly. Why didn't you tell me? I sighed, thinking of all the times he dismissed my concerns about Patricia and Amanda's behavior. Would you have believed me? Or would Patricia have convinced you I was just being jealous again? His silence was answer enough. Throughout the day, texts flooded in from Amanda. They're taking Mom's computers. Dad won't stop crying. The FBI agent says we might face charges. How could you do this to us? I ignored them all, focusing instead on my hospital rounds. It wasn't until evening that I got the call I'd been waiting for. Mr. Harrison, my mother's old lawyer. Everything went exactly as you predicted, he said. The bank flagged the suspicious transfers, which triggered the FBI investigation. They've uncovered quite a network of money laundering through Patricia's real estate business. And my real college fund. Safe and secure, just as your mother set it up. The offshore account hasn't been touched. Patricia and Amanda never even knew it existed. I thanked him and hung up, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. My mother had always said, keep your cards close and your enemies closer. She'd known, somehow, that I might need protection one day. Later that night, Dad came to my apartment. He looked older, tired, but there was a clarity in his eyes I hadn't seen in years. Patricia's been arrested, he said, sitting heavily on my couch. Money laundering, tax evasion, wire fraud. Amanda's being questioned as an accomplice. All these years, I never saw what was happening right under my nose. I made us both tea, a habit I picked up from my mother. You saw what you wanted to see, Dad. They counted on that. Your mother? He started, his voice catching. She would have seen through them immediately. She did, I said softly. Why do you think she set up my college fund the way she did? She knew something like this might happen. Dad looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps seeing for the first time how much I resembled my mother, not just in appearance, but in foresight and strength. I'm sorry, he said, for not protecting you better, for letting them make you feel like an outsider in your own home. I took his hand, feeling the years of distance between us start to close. I protected myself, Dad, just like Mom taught me to. My phone buzzed with another text from Amanda. The FBI is charging Mom. This is all your fault. You've destroyed our family. I showed it to Dad, who read it with a sad shake of his head. She still doesn't get it, does she? This isn't about you. It's about their choices. Some people never learn. I agreed. They're so used to blaming others that they can't see their own responsibility. As Dad left that evening, he paused at the door. Your mother would be proud of you, not just for protecting yourself, but for being smart enough to let them reveal who they really are. I smiled, thinking of the white envelope in my desk drawer, the one containing the letter Mom had left with Mr. Harrison to be given to me when I needed it most. Inside, she'd written, sometimes the best defense is letting your enemies think they've won. Watch, wait, and let them defeat themselves. She'd known, somehow, that I'd need these lessons one day, that I'd face people who would try to take what was mine. And she prepared me, not just with a protected college fund, but with the wisdom to handle those who would try to harm me. As I got ready for bed that night, one final text came through from Amanda. We're going to lose everything because of you. I didn't respond. She'd lost everything because of her own choices, her own greed, her own belief that she could take whatever she wanted without consequences. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about letting justice take its natural course. 6 months after Amanda's failed attempt to steal my college fund, I sat in a courtroom watching Patricia and Amanda face sentencing. The FBI's investigation had uncovered far more than just money laundering, years of tax evasion, wire fraud, and a network of fake property deals that have funded their lavish lifestyle. Patricia stood before the judge, her designer clothes replaced by modest business attire, trying to maintain her dignity as the charges were read. Amanda sat behind her, head down, no longer the confident bully who texted me gloating about stealing my future. The defendant, Patricia Wilson, is sentenced to 5 years in federal prison, the judge announced, her voice firm. Additionally, all assets connected to the illegal activities will be seized. Amanda, charged as an accomplice for her role in spending and transferring the laundered money, received 3 years of probation and a substantial fine. Her dream of an easy life, funded by stolen money, had crumbled spectacularly. As they were led out of the courtroom, Amanda caught my eye. The hatred in her gaze had been replaced by something else. Understanding, perhaps, that her own greed had been her undoing. Dad waited for me outside the courthouse, looking both relieved and exhausted. "It's finally over," he said, running a hand through his graying hair. "Almost," I replied. "There's something I need to show you." We drove to a small cafe where my mother and I used to have Saturday brunches. Once seated, I pulled out an envelope, the one she'd left with Mr. Harrison. "Mom wrote this letter before she died," I explained, handing it to him. She knew Patricia wasn't what she seemed. She saw through the act from the beginning. Dad's hands trembled as he read. "My dearest Olivia, if you're reading this, then someone has tried to take what's rightfully yours. I've watched Patricia since your father started dating her, seeing how she manipulates situations for her benefit. Trust your instincts about her. They're the same instincts I have. The real college fund is protected, but that's not the most important thing I'm leaving you. I'm leaving you the wisdom to handle people like Patricia and Amanda. Don't fight fire with fire, let them burn themselves out. Take care of your father. He's a good man who sometimes sees the best in people who don't deserve it. All my love. Mom." Dad wiped his eyes, folding the letter carefully. She knew all along. Why didn't she say anything? Would you have believed her? I asked gently, or would you have thought she was just jealous of your new relationship? He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes. She protected you the only way she could, by teaching you to protect yourself. Later that evening, I visited Mom's grave, placing fresh flowers beside her headstone. I sat there for a while, telling her about everything that had happened. "You were right, Mom," I said softly. "Sometimes the best way to deal with people like Patricia and Amanda is to let them think they've won. They do all the work of destroying themselves." My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda, sent from her mother's prison. "I hope you're happy. We've lost everything." I didn't respond. She still didn't understand that this wasn't about happiness or revenge. It was about justice, about consequences finally catching up with their actions. Dad's been different since the trial. He's more present, more aware. We have weekly dinners now, slowly rebuilding our relationship without Patricia's manipulative presence between us. Sometimes he asks about the real college fund, but I keep those details private. Mom taught me well, some cards are best kept close to the chest, even with those you love. As for Amanda, last I heard, she's working retail again, living in a small apartment, learning the hard way that honest work is better than easy money. Sometimes consequences are the best teachers. My mother's final lesson wasn't about money or protection. It was about patience, wisdom, and letting people reveal their true nature. In trying to steal what they thought was my inheritance, Patricia and Amanda lost everything they had. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's simply having the wisdom to step back and let justice take its course. And that college fund they never found. It's still growing, safely tucked away. A reminder that my mother's love and protection extend far beyond her time with me. Some legacies can't be stolen, no matter how hard people try. $250,000. Amanda's voice dripped with satisfaction through my phone. "Way better than keeping your old junk locked away. You should be thanking me for finally doing something useful with it." I gripped my kitchen counter, my knuckles turning white as the magnitude of what she'd done hit me. My sister-in-law had just sold my entire family heirloom collection. Pieces that had been passed down through 5 generations. Pieces that told the story of my family's journey from Italy to America. My name is Sophia Rossi, and at 35, I just discovered that family isn't always who you think they are. Amanda, my brother Michael's wife of 3 years, had somehow accessed my climate-controlled storage unit while I was away at a conservation conference in Boston. The same storage unit where I kept my family's most precious possessions. Antique jewelry, hand-painted porcelain, rare books, and irreplaceable photographs. "You had no right," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. Those weren't yours to sell. Amanda's laugh was sharp and dismissive. Oh please, they were just collecting dust. Besides, the money will be much more useful. I'm thinking of buying a new car, something classic, like those stupid vases you use to fawn over. The irony of her words might have been funny if I wasn't fighting back tears. Those stupid vases were hand-painted by my great-grandmother, who brought them from Florence in 1932, wrapped in her wedding dress and carried across an ocean to start a new life. Where did you sell them? I asked, already opening my laptop to check the security footage. Amanda didn't know about the cameras I'd installed last year after a break-in attempt. The storage facility's own security was decent, but I'd wanted extra protection for my family's legacy. Some private collector, she said smugly. He knew the real value of things, unlike you. Paid cash too, smart man. I typed in my security login credentials, my fingers trembling slightly. And how exactly did you get into the storage unit, Amanda? There was a slight pause, the first crack in her confident facade. Michael gave me the key, of course. He is your brother, after all. The collection belongs to the whole family. Another lie. Michael had been traveling in Japan for the past month, completely unreachable due to a meditation retreat. He wouldn't be back for another week, and he'd never given anyone access to my storage unit. He respected what those heirlooms meant to me. The security footage loaded, showing clear images from multiple angles. I started with yesterday's feed, watching as Amanda approached the unit, but she wasn't alone. A tall man in an expensive suit walked beside her, gesturing animatedly. They reached my unit, and I leaned closer to the screen, my blood running cold as I watched Amanda pull out not a key, but what looked like a set of lock picks. You broke in, I said, cutting off whatever excuse she was about to make. I'm watching the footage right now, Amanda. You picked the lock. The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, you're bluffing. There aren't any cameras in that place. I continued watching as they loaded box after box into a sleek black SUV. The man handed Amanda something, probably the cash she'd bragged about. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m. yesterday. 3:47 p.m., I said quietly. Black SUV, license plate visible. You're wearing your red blazer, the one Michael bought you for Christmas. Want me to continue? You little, she sputtered, her composure finally cracking. Those things were wasted on you anyway. All you did was hide them away like some crazy collector. At least now they'll be appreciated. I thought about the hours I'd spent cataloging each piece, researching their history, documenting the stories behind them. The collection wasn't just valuable in terms of money. It was our family's history, tangible pieces of our past that connected us to our roots. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice cold. You're going to tell me exactly who you sold them to, or the police get this footage. Your choice. Amanda's laugh was desperate now. You wouldn't dare. Michael would never forgive you for getting me arrested. Michael would never forgive you for stealing our family's heritage, I countered. But let's ask him, shall we? He lands in Tokyo in about 2 hours. I'm sure he'd love to see this footage. You're bluffing, she said again, but I could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Besides, the sale is done. What's done is done. I smiled, but she couldn't see it. That's where you're wrong, Amanda. So very wrong. You see that man you sold our heirlooms to? He's about to learn some very interesting things about the legality of his purchase. I ended the call and immediately dialed Detective Martinez, my friend from college who now worked in the art crimes division. As the phone rang, I downloaded the security footage to my laptop, making sure to save multiple copies. Amanda had no idea what she just started. Those heirlooms weren't just valuable antiques, they were registered, documented pieces of cultural heritage. The sale wasn't just theft, it was a federal crime. My phone buzzed with a text from Amanda. You're making a big mistake. I was trying to help the family. I ignored it, focusing instead on composing an email to Michael. My brother needed to know what his wife had done, and he needed to see it with his own eyes. The security footage would tell him everything he needed to know. The heirlooms might be gone for now, but Amanda was about to learn a harsh lesson about family, respect, and the consequences of underestimating the wrong person. I opened my files and began documenting everything, preparing for what would come next. This wasn't over, it was just beginning. Detective Martinez called me back within an hour. Sophia, I've reviewed the footage. This is serious. We're not just talking about simple theft. The items she sold are registered with multiple cultural heritage databases. I sat in my study, surrounded by photographs of the collection, my own detailed catalog that Amanda hadn't known about. What's our next step? I've already put out alerts to known dealers and auction houses, she explained. Given the value and historical significance, this buyer won't be able to move these pieces without raising red flags. We've also got clear footage of both your sister-in-law and the buyer. The license plate is registered to a James Harrison. The name hit me like a thunderbolt. Harrison? As in Harrison Fine Arts. The same. He's known in our department, usually stays just within the law, but he's been suspected of dealing in questionably acquired pieces before. This time, though, he's made a mistake. I pulled up Harrison's website on my laptop. Sure enough, there he was, the same man from the security footage, standing smugly among his collection. My blood boiled seeing him there, knowing he had my family's treasures. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Amanda. That collector already has plans for the pieces. You can't stop it now. Just take the money and be grateful. Before I could respond, another call came through. Michael. My heart raced as I answered. Hey, brother. Sophia. His voice was tight, controlled. I just got your email. Please tell me this isn't real. Please tell me Amanda didn't. I'm looking at the footage right now, I said gently. I'm so sorry, Michael, but it's all true. There was a long silence, then a deep, shaky breath. I'm cutting my trip short. I'll be on the next flight home. Have you called the police? Better, I replied. Detective Martinez from Art Crimes is handling it. Michael, there's something else you should know. The buyer is James Harrison. The dealer? Michael's voice sharpened. Sophia, that man's reputation is terrible. If he's involved. I know, but we've got him on camera, paying cash for stolen goods. He can't wiggle out of this one. Just then, my email pinged. A message from an unknown address, but the subject line made my heart stop. Regarding your family collection. Urgent. I opened it, putting Michael on speaker as I read. Dear Ms. Rossi, I recently acquired some items that I believe might be of interest to you. While I purchased them in good faith, certain irregularities have come to my attention. Perhaps we could meet to discuss a mutually beneficial resolution. GH. He's scared, Michael observed. The alerts must have worked. Before I could reply, another email arrived. This one from Detective Martinez, marked urgent. Sophia, Harrison just tried to contact 3 different international buyers about recent acquisitions. All 3 have declined, citing our alerts. He's trapped and he knows it. Don't respond to any communication from him. Let him sweat. I smiled grimly. The net was closing in, but I knew Harrison wasn't our biggest problem. As if reading my thoughts, Michael spoke again. What about Amanda? Have you heard from her since? Just text trying to justify what she did. She doesn't know about Harrison's reputation or the legal implications yet. My doorbell rang, making me jump. Through the security camera, I saw Amanda standing there, looking considerably less confident than she had during our phone call. She's here, I told Michael. Want me to call you back? No, he said firmly. Keep me on speaker. I want to hear this. I opened the door to find Amanda clutching her designer purse like a shield. Her makeup couldn't quite hide how pale she was. We need to talk, she said, trying to sound authoritative but failing. That buyer, Harrison, he's been calling me nonstop. Something about documentation and provenance. Come in, I said coldly, stepping aside. Michael's on the phone. I'm sure he'd love to hear your explanation. She faltered, clearly not expecting this. Michael? But, you're in Japan. Not anymore. His voice came through the speaker, hard as steel. Start talking, Amanda, and don't even think about lying. She sank onto my couch, her bravado crumbling. I thought. The money was just sitting there in those old things, and we could use it for... For what? I interrupted. A new car. Some shopping sprees. Was that worth destroying our family's heritage? You don't understand, she protested weakly. Harrison said he'd pay cash, no questions asked. He said these kinds of private sales happen all the time. And now he's panicking because he can't sell them. I finished for her. Because every piece you stole is registered and documented. Every reputable dealer and auction house has been alerted. You didn't just commit theft, Amanda. You committed a federal crime. The color drained from her face. What? What do you mean? Michael's voice cut through the room. It means you're in serious trouble. Both you and Harrison. Where's the money, Amanda? She clutched her purse tighter. I'd already spent some of it. On deposits for what? Michael's voice was deadly quiet. For a yacht rental, she whispered. And a villa in Greece. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at this woman, my sister-in-law, who had so casually destroyed something precious and irreplaceable for her own selfish desires. Detective Martinez will be here soon, I said finally. I suggest you tell her everything. Where Harrison took the pieces, any conversations you had with him, all of it. It might help reduce the charges. Charges? Amanda's voice rose in panic. You can't be serious. We're family. Family? Michael's voice cracked with emotion. Family doesn't steal from each other. Family doesn't destroy generations of heritage for a yacht rental. You stopped being family the moment you broke into that storage unit. Amanda started to cry, but I felt no sympathy. My phone buzzed with a text from Detective Martinez. Harrison's trying to leave the country. We've got eyes on him. Don't worry, those pieces aren't going anywhere. I showed the message to Amanda, watching as the last of her composure crumbled. The money, she said desperately. I can give back what's left. It was never about the money, I said quietly. But you never understood that, did you? The sound of police sirens in the distance made Amanda jump. Michael was silent on the phone, but I could hear his deep, controlled breathing. The nightmare wasn't over, but at least now we could see the path to making it right. As the sirens grew closer, I looked at the family photographs on my wall, 5 generations of history that Amanda had tried to erase with one greedy decision. She was about to learn that some things are worth more than money, and some betrayals can never be undone. The next few weeks passed in a blur of legal meetings and police interviews. Harrison, faced with overwhelming evidence, cracked first. He revealed the location of every piece from my collection, stored in a climate-controlled warehouse outside the city. He'd been planning to ship them overseas through various shell companies, but our quick action had frozen his entire operation. We've recovered everything, Detective Martinez told me as we stood in the warehouse, surrounded by carefully packed crates. Harrison's cooperating fully. He's more worried about his reputation than facing charges. He's offering to handle all costs for proper restoration and return shipping. I ran my hand over a familiar crate, knowing my great-grandmother's vases were inside. And Amanda. She's accepted a plea deal. The prosecutor took into account that she returned most of the money and provided evidence against Harrison. She's looking at probation, community service, and mandatory financial counseling. Michael hadn't spoken to Amanda since that day in my living room. He'd filed for divorce immediately upon returning from Japan, citing her criminal actions as grounds. The last I heard, she'd moved back in with her parents, her dreams of yachts and villas replaced by the harsh reality of legal fees and a ruined reputation. The collection's cultural significance actually helped us, Martinez continued. The federal charges scared Harrison straight. He's provided a full confession and documentation of similar deals he's made. The Art Crimes Unit is having a field day. 2 days later, I stood in my storage unit, now equipped with a state-of-the-art security system. Harrison's involuntary contribution to making things right. Each piece was returned to its proper place, each family treasure back where it belonged. Michael helped me catalog everything, our hands gentle as we unpacked generations of memories. You know what Mom used to say about these? He asked, carefully unwrapping one of the vases. She said they weren't just containers for flowers, they were vessels for stories. Each chip and crack was a chapter in our family's journey. I nodded, remembering our mother's voice as she taught us about our heritage. She would have been proud of how we handled this, I said softly. We protected what matters. The final piece we unpacked was a small, leather-bound diary that had belonged to our great-grandmother. Inside, written in fading Italian script, was the story of how she carried these treasures across an ocean, believing in a future she couldn't yet see. Amanda never understood, Michael said, his voice heavy with emotion. She saw dollar signs where we saw stories, market value where we saw memories. A month after everything was returned, I hosted a small gathering at my home. Family members from across the country came to see the collection, now displayed more securely but still as beautifully as ever. I'd hired an expert to help properly document each piece's history and significance, ensuring that future generations would understand their value beyond any price tag. Detective Martinez attended too, admiring the pieces she'd helped recover. "You know," she said, sipping her wine, "in all my years working art crimes, I've never seen someone so prepared. Those security cameras, the documentation, you made our job much easier." I smiled, thinking of all the precautions I'd taken that had seemed almost paranoid at the time. Sometimes the best defense is being ready for the worst. Later that evening, as the guests left and Michael helped me clean up, we found an envelope that had been slipped under my door. Inside was a letter from Amanda. "I'm sorry, I know those words aren't enough, but they're all I have. I didn't understand what I was destroying. Maybe I never will. The money's all been returned, not that it matters now. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed with cash." Michael read it once and then set it aside without comment. Some betrayals leave scars that no apology can heal. Standing in my study that night, surrounded by the treasures that had almost been lost, I felt a deep sense of peace. These pieces weren't just antiques or investments. They were our anchor to the past, our bridge to the future. Amanda's greed had threatened that legacy, but in protecting it, we'd grown stronger. The collection stands as a reminder now, not just of our family's journey, but of the importance of standing firm when what matters most is threatened. Some things are worth more than money, and some legacies are beyond price. 5 generations of stories, safely preserved for the next chapter to begin.